talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Good morning. How's everybody doing today? My name is Sam Wheeler, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Marketing. Join me in the studio today. We have Kevin Speck, my co-host, and we also have Rich Rajinski of Tragic Media. They're a web development agency based in downtown San Diego, and we are talking website, building websites, website security, and all things data, I guess. Rich, how are you doing today?
Great, Sam. Really excited to be here. Thanks.
Cool. Well, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to get started bright and early, 8 a.m. The first section we're going to talk about today is sort of building a website. But before we do that, I wanted to introduce Rich. Rich, give you a chance to kind of talk a little bit about your background and Tragic Media and sort of how you came about into this space.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm the owner of Tragic Media. We're a small development agency based here in San Diego, but we help service clients all over the United States. I originally started Tragic Media as a white label company. We were working and kind of helping fill the gap and helping other agencies with their more technical development projects. So we'd come on and kind of as a white label resource, help just on their bigger builds and help to kind of flesh that out and make sure that they were successful. Over the years, we've evolved. We've been around for 9 years now, and right now we really focus on kind of mid-level and enterprise website and application builds.
Great. Cool. So let's just dive right in it. How do you think about that? Cool. First section, building a website. All right. I'm a small, medium business, or I'm launching a new website. What do I need to know about sort of website security, or what considerations do I need to take?
I think, a lot of that depends on what you're building. I mean, if you're building a huge, modern application, that's obviously going to have a lot more considerations to take versus if you're just kind of building a standard marketing website. Either way, you definitely want to make sure that whoever's building your website has some knowledge in terms of keeping websites secure and up to date, and making sure that the platform that they are going to be putting you on is one that is known for being secure. Okay,
cool. So that kind of is a good segue into what are the platforms if I'm not a web developer, right? I'm just somebody who's kind of in charge of this project. What should I know about the platforms? Are there any ones that you prefer? That type of stuff.
Perfect. Yeah. There's a wide range of platforms available, and it's kind of a really evolving space. I think right now there's a lot of SaaS-based platforms coming up, things like Wix, and other bigger enterprise versions of that, where basically you are paying to use their software, and a lot of those security considerations aren't ones that you have to make because it's kind of on the their software team to make sure that your site is kind of kept up to date and secure. But if you're building your own site, it really depends on what code base that you work on. We're a PHP shop, so I can only really speak to those content management systems. Systems like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, those types of systems are ones that we're familiar with, and really all of them, take strides to being secure, and it's really a matter of how you build your website and what they're doing when they're building, and making sure that your team is taking best practices throughout the build.
Okay, cool. So what are kind of the pros and cons between some of these more, I don't want to call them more user friendly, but easier for smaller businesses like Wix?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it all depends on what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to build. Those are great platforms when you're starting out because there's a lot less that you have to be concerned with. You don't have to be concerned with the security. You don't have to be as concerned with, what your team is doing behind the scenes and making sure that they're following best practices. That's a great stepping tool to kind of get you out there and get you started at a really low cost. But I think that they're very limiting in terms of their functionality and their design. And at some point, business wants to kind of separate itself from the competition. And that's where usually businesses start looking into building something more custom with a custom content management system.
Cool. And what are kind of, so you said you work in PHP. You guys predominantly WordPress?
Mostly Drupal and Angular. So we do a lot of JavaScript and PHP. So we're mostly Drupal and Angular, but we've been working with WordPress for 9-10 years now. So we have a long history, and that's something that we still continue to support. A lot of our philosophy is instead of just working with one system. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job. Making sure we understand what our client's trying to build, and then we suggest the appropriate platform for them.
Okay, cool. So I guess that kind of brings me to the next question is, all right, I know that I want to build a custom sites, got a pretty large business. What are the important considerations that I need to take before launching the website, or before even the first piece of code gets written? What do I need to check and make sure that we're doing right?
Yeah, that's a great piece, because security really does begin at the build level. You have to make sure that your team is following best practices, making sure that they are not storing sensitive customer information locally, making sure that all of the transactions between the application and the database are all secure. Making sure that you have SSL in place so that all those different connections are secure. Different pieces like that need to be taken into account from the beginning. As a small medium business owner, you don't have to be in the code checking those things. You just need to make sure that you're working with a company that does follow those best practices.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that. Let's unpack that a little bit. SSL, right? What is it?
It's a secure socket layer, and it's a protocol for making sure that all communication between the database where the information is stored and the application layer, so the code, making sure that all of that is secure always, and so that any data that's translated between the two is encrypted so that it's not easily viewable or hijacked.
Okay, cool. And the next, I guess, unpacking that question as well, the not storing your customers' data locally. What does that mean?
So, just not having passwords stored locally anywhere. Sometimes application APIs kind of don't necessarily get built with best practices, and developers have to kind of work around that. And sometimes, they store some of that sensitive data locally, and that's, easier for bots and hijackers, hackers to get to, making sure that all that data is encrypted and stored in the database, and then, they're using tokens and other best practices to actually authenticate the user.
Okay, cool. So when you got these considerations that you need to do when you're starting in the build level, how do you prioritize sort of your security framework, I guess you could call it?
I think that you just need to make sure that these best practices are followed. Again, from a marketing website point of view, it's less of a concern. There's less tool kind of check marks that you have to take when you're building a large application. You definitely want somebody that is really knowledgeable about security, that is kind of checking off these boxes, and that can go deeper. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. Third-party libraries, making sure that when you are using libraries to help save your development team time, that those are quality libraries that are built in a secure manner. And so there's a lot of things that have to be considered when you're building a larger application, which again goes back to just making sure you're working with a really great team. If you are using a bunch of consultants and you're kind of putting the team together, then there's going to be a lot more. That's going to fall back. That responsibility is going to fall back to you to make sure that you're knowledgeable about security, and that you're able to check through the code and make sure that your team's following best practices and stuff.
Okay, cool. Is there like a difference between like a lead gen website versus an e-commerce site? Are there different considerations to take there?
100%. Yeah, definitely. It's really about what data is being collected. And where that data is going. If it's going back and forth, is it just going one way? Is there user accounts? Is there encrypted is there user account information and kind of dashboards and other more sensitive area information? Obviously, credit cards. If you're dealing with credit cards, that's a lot more that needs to be taken into account in terms of the security, and just making sure that best practices are followed and stuff. And again, a lot of that falls back to the systems that you're using. If you're using like a Shopify or a WooCommerce, a lot of those things are taken care of for you. If you're building all of the e-commerce yourself with like a custom Stripe integration or PayPal integration, then you have to do your homework a little bit more and make sure that you're following best practices and making sure that all those transactions are very securely taken care of.
Okay, cool. That's there's a lot in there. I'm going to unpack that in a sec, but wanted to kind of talk about Shopify and WooCommerce, right? A lot of people in the industry, everybody's heard those terms. Now, why would somebody not? You kind of touched on it briefly, but why doesn't everybody just use those? right? Why would you kind of risk building a custom, checkout experience and not going through Shopify or WooCommerce?
I think it depends on what you're building. A lot of what we end up building is not that standard cart experience. You're not just selling shirts online. It's not just categories and products. It's a lot more sophisticated, either subscription commerce, which some of that is possible with WooCommerce and Shopify, or applications. A lot of times nowadays, you're paying for upsells, with games or applications, and those things are all more custom done rather than using like a platform for that.
Okay, interesting. Great. And sort of the next thing that I want to touch on is, when you are building, like let's say you've got a form submission, right? If a lot of people are using WordPress, huge, percentage of sites out there on WordPress, right? What are its kind of is there a best form platform that you use? I mean, you guys probably build all custom forms, but if you're a small business out there, are there any like specific types of forms you'd recommend, or what are kind of the form basics, I guess you could say?
I think Contact Form 7 is WordPress's kind of one of their more popular form plugins. There's also other tools like HubSpot. Potentially your CRM could be used to include your forms onto your website. A lot of people use Salesforce or HubSpot, and the forms on their WordPress website are just forms from that. Again, it really depends on what your setup is and what your goals are.
Cool. Thank you so much. This is This Week in Marketing. You're listening to This Week in Marketing on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in internet talk. We'll be back in a sec. Thanks.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on VinVillage Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The WorldLink program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple, and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com, on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
All right, we're back. This Week in Marketing. I'm your host, Sam Wheeler, and with me in the studio is Kevin Speck, my co-host, and we have Rich Rudzinski of Tragic Media. They're a web dev agency based in downtown San Diego with clients all over the globe. And we are talking website security, data, and website builds today. So we had a pretty good first segment. Before we dive into section 2, I wanted to talk about mistakes. All right, everybody loves learning from their mistakes. And Rich, what are some of the biggest mistakes that a new website or a new launch what are some of the biggest mistakes that they make, right? Or something you've seen, or some interesting studies or anything. You don't have to name any clients, obviously.
Yeah. I think that from a security standpoint, it's definitely just the biggest mistake is just not considering it and dealing with it after a vulnerability has been happened. The site has been compromised, the application in some manner hijacked or something else. That would be, the biggest thing. I think usually launches, are rocky for other reasons other than security stuff. But, usually that comes into play after the fact where, these things weren't thought about up front, and then later, businesses will pay for it.
Okay. Is there a pre-launch QA process that you guys use from a security standpoint, or is there like a best practice that, a website can go through or think about before they actually send it live?
Yeah, kind of like we talked about, a lot of it depends on what you're building and what platforms you're using, So in terms of like a general checklist, making sure that SSL is in place is, really important. If you're using a framework, making sure that all of the plugins and the core modules and everything are all up to date is really important. And making sure that your team hasn't hacked any of those in order to work around something, which is, I think, the most common issue and why sites become compromised is that, developers need to achieve something, for a designer functionality point of view, and they may not follow best practices. And then because of that, a certain plugin or a certain theme can't be updated, and then you can't get those security updates. And then all of a sudden, your site becomes vulnerable to compromises.
Okay. Should we have, I guess we'll talk about this in a bit, but we briefly touched on SSL, and there's a benefit now for sites going to SSL. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think that, Google and some of the bigger players are definitely, trying to keep the web secure in a safer place. And so right now, Google's actually started to boost your site ranking if you do have HTTPS, which is SSL, in place. It's just a great thing for all businesses to have, and there's actually ways to get it for free. So it doesn't actually have to cost you anything, and you can get that free benefit and get some boost in the search results. So that's an easy just win for any company.
Definitely. Okay, that kind of brings me to my next point about SSL is, I've got my main site's on SNL and my images or something else on my site is not on SSL. Is that an issue?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything has to be served over HTTPS when you have that in place. And if you don't, that's where the little broken lock in the corner of the browser is going to show up. And that's, users are becoming more savvy to that. And that's one of the first things that they'll look when they go to a site is they look in the corner, make sure that green lock is there. So A, you need to have SSL to get the lock. And then B, you have to make sure that all your content is being served securely in order for that lock to be green and to be locked. So if you ever see a page on your site that isn't locked, then you have to follow up with your team and figure out what's happening there.
Okay, cool. So that kind of brings us to the next segment about maintaining a website. I'm a medium to small business. I've got my websites. Haven't really thought about website security in ages. What should I do, or what should I ask my dev team?
Yeah, I think that it's important for any company that is using a platform out there to make sure that the platform or framework is kept up to date, and that they're doing monthly security updates. The web is a very rapidly changing place, and there's a bunch of people out there trying to take advantage of vulnerabilities. It's not necessarily that they're targeting you or your business, but they just put these scripts out there that just search the web for whatever hole that they may have found in whatever software it is. So making sure that your system is always up to date is very important. And it doesn't have to be a huge investment of time or money, but just spending an hour or two a month, making sure that your team checks on the site, is really a good investment of your money.
Okay, is there a way for, let's say, a site team in-house to check for vulnerabilities outside of asking some developer to do the checks for you? Are there tools out there on the web that you can run your site through or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. One, WordPress, Drupal, whatever system you use, there should be a page on there that shows you whether the modules are up to date or not. So that's an easy way to tell. And then there are a lot of tools out there. Most of them are paid tools, but they will do a kind of a security scan of your website and point out any potential issues that you might want to look into. Okay,
cool. So, all right, I've done the scan. There is an issue, right? Or a red flag has popped up. What are some of the common security issues that you see with, any type of business sites? I mean, that's kind of a broad question, but if we can maybe talk about a few easy or common ones that you found, that would be, I think, helpful for everybody listening.
Yeah, like I had mentioned before, I think the most common one is that a developer hacked one of the themes or one of the plugins, and not from like a hacker standpoint, but they didn't follow best practices, and they put a piece of duct tape on something that they should have rebuilt or adjusted in another way, and because of that, the plugin or the module or the theme or whatever it is can't be updated, and then there's some security vulnerability that's found, and your site can't get the patch for that in order to keep that up to date and secure.
And then you have to sort of hire somebody to come in and take away that digital duct tape.
Yes, exactly.
All right, cool. Are there any other, like, outside of that sort of hacking, the digital duct tape? I'm going to start using that every day. Are there any other like common sort of vulnerabilities that you have seen?
No, we've, seen a lot related to that. Drupal is one of the systems that we work, primarily with. And a couple months ago, there was a big vulnerability that they captured with their system, and they put out a release for that. And we did see that a lot of sites that didn't patch that release got hijacked. Not on the front end, their website didn't get taken over, but their server did, and they turned it into a mining. They used it for data mining for bitcoins and stuff like that, which was kind of a new fun thing that I hadn't seen before.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good segue into kind of talking about what hackers are going to hack, right?
Yeah.
So that's one instance of what they'll do is they find a security, they go in, and then they use your server for data processing, essentially, right? What are some of the other sort of motivations behind, I guess before we get into that, let's ask, how can you find, like if your site got hacked and somebody's mining for Bitcoin, right? How do you know that that's going on?
Yeah, so, some of them are going to be more obvious, where they hijack your website and they, change the homepage to be, redirect to their site or some horrible spam or whatever. But the data mining one, definitely can be something that can go unseen. And we've noticed it, after looking in the server reports, and you can kind of see that the server is just working a lot harder than it should be working, based on, previous logs and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So we've got, you hijack the site, you redirect it to your own site, you use the server for processing power. Are there any other, what are some other motivations behind, accessing these vulnerabilities in websites?
I think that those are probably, the most common is, getting some link backs to their domain or getting, their publicity for whatever cause or spam they're trying to, promote there. And then, the data mining thing is, and using your server for its power is definitely, a newer one. Other than that, they oftentimes will go after the actual data of the website. They'll get into the database and they'll be able to, steal user data, like has happened with pretty much every major application out there. I know we've all, had our data stolen from, one company or another, from a breach. And that's obviously a much bigger issue, and one that, has a lot more sensitivities and is a lot harder to recover from.
Okay, cool. So that's kind of brings me to my next question on my list here. How can I protect that data? I mean, outside of doing like manual checks, is there any specific style of protection that you guys use, or and then we'll kind of talk about what to do after that it gets stolen, right?
Yeah. I think that goes back to just, the SSL, making sure that everything is using that encrypted, transactions, between the data, and then just following best practices for whatever framework or code that you're using, things like we mentioned before, not storing user data, locally, making sure that any third-party libraries that you're using are trusted and secure, following best practices for interacting with the server and passing information back and forth. Those are all important things that come up during the actual development of the product that are going to ensure that, the data is kept secure.
All right, great. So hackers, they do their thing. They steal the data, or they use processing, or they just straight up hijack the entire site. Are there sort of new trends outside of the data mining? Are there any sort of new trends that you've seen from security protocol, I guess you can call it?
For
rationale behind why people are doing.
No, I think the mining was the newest interesting thing that popped up. Is that we didn't see them actually hijacking the database or trying to get to the data. They just wanted the processing power of the server, which was an interesting new twist that we found.
Yeah, because it's expensive, right?
Yeah. Definitely need a lot of them going to be making money.
So is there like insurance that you can get? Are there sites, will they like insure if all of a sudden you come to your next month and your fee is huge? We'll talk about that after the break.
All right, sounds good.
You're listening to This Week in Marketing on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in internet talk. See you in a bit.
Securing Our eCity Foundation is a nonprofit organization focused on cybersecurity awareness and education. Formed in 2011, their mission is to enable every San Diegan to live, work, and play safely in the cyber world. For more information, visit securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org, 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Kinja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of Universal Talk Laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal Talk Laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kinja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at KinjaDixon.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the coaches training program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
All right, welcome back to This Week in Marketing. I'm your host, Sam Wheeler, and in the studio we have Kevin Speck, my co-host, and we are talking website security and data with Rich Radzinski of Tragic Media. They are a web development agency based in downtown San Diego. Welcome back, guys. Pretty intense conversation so far, a lot of information. We're going to take a step back quickly and sort of go back to this idea that I've been hacked, right? Or I've seen my data loss, or all of a sudden my server bills are insane. What steps should I take, right? I'm a medium-sized business. Maybe I'm e-commerce, or maybe I am lead gen sites. What do I do now outside of just calling Tragic Media, of course?
Yeah, obviously this is where I put my plug, right? Yeah. No, I mean, you need to talk to your team. Whoever your developer is. Whether you have a consultant or somebody in house. Somebody needs to look at that and fix it. Obviously as soon as possible. Most of that's going to involve like scrubbing any of that out and then patching whatever vulnerability was taken care of. So making sure that if they made users in your WordPress site, that those users are removed and can no longer have access to that. Making sure if they do have miner going on your server, that you found it and you've scrubbed it out and it's no longer able to regenerate itself and continue mining. And then from that point, you have to figure out where did, what happened here. How did this user or this bot or whatever take advantage of my site, and then you have to get that hole patched up and make sure that your site is kept secure.
Okay, so that kind of brings me to the next segment here about building a team, right? It doesn't have to be in-house, but when I'm asking questions to a developer, right? I've been hacked, or I'm worried about it. I've got a lot of information. I'm trying to move to SSL. There's a ton of considerations to take. What kind of questions should I ask when I'm interviewing a development team or a developer, especially if you have no knowledge of the industry or how stuff works, right?
Yeah,
how can you tell if somebody knows what they're doing or if they're just, blowing smoke at you?
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one, and that's, definitely, a lot of reason why we came to be, and quite frankly, why we have our name. We've met a lot of businesses that have gone through, really horrible times trying to build and develop their, idea or their new, concept or business website or whatever it might be. And it's, a lot of companies out there can be a lot of smoke and mirrors. And, it just kind of comes with the territory. So, I would definitely say, get some referrals, talk to other people that have worked with the company, find out if their customers are with them for a long time. Are their customers are they just churning through the customers, where they're just building sites and getting them out the door and they're done, and they're not there to help support and maintain? Because that's, definitely an important consideration, because once your site is launched, that's great, but, A, you definitely need to take care of it from a security standpoint, ongoing. And then B, you want to continue to grow that site and, change that site. And you might have questions and might run into some issues. And you definitely want to make sure that somebody's going to be there to support you. And, you can do that on your own in-house, either through hiring somebody or through, a contractor. Or, if you're working with an outside agency, definitely talk to them about their maintenance plan and, what it's going to cost you long-term to support your website.
Okay, that's an interesting piece there. The difference between in-house and outsourcing the development work. So obviously you're a little bit biased on in-house versus out.
Yeah.
But should there be I guess, in your opinion, what would an ideal team look like for, let's go through, if you can, small website, mom and pop shop, medium size, up to 4 to 10 million, and then a larger site.
Yeah. Again, depends on what you're doing with your site. Are you constantly iterating on it, and are you adding new features and enhancements every month? If in which case you're going to need a bigger team, and also you're going to need a more expertise across your team. I think the idea that there's these full stack developers, this term that they've come up with for basically a nice unicorn that can do all of your things for you is great, but they're few and far between people that can actually handle the complete breadth of a website from back end through to the front end. So if you are making a really high-end website, you're going to need a pretty big team of experts to do that. But then to support that website, you're not going to need a really big team to do that. So, I think that's where a lot of companies, why people use agencies and where a lot of companies, have some difficulties is either they want to bring it in-house and bring one person to do it all, and it just doesn't quite get the kind of polish and kind of finish that you would with a bigger company that's working with you. But then when you're working with a bigger company, you don't want to be paying them too much, every month to support your website. So, there's definitely a lot of difficulty in that and in finding, a good cost-effective, thing for your website. I will say that, if you're building, something really huge in enterprise, a lot of times it does make sense to be building your own team because, if you're building the next Uber, you're going to be constantly pumping out, new versions of that, and you're going to want a team that, really understands, the core concept of that. But, there's a lot of in between, Uber and, a mom and pop website, and so, finding the right team for you, is really going to depend on your budget and your goals. You can look out, to other agencies and kind of, in your area is usually the easiest because then you can go meet them and kind of get a sense of who you're able to, work well with and stuff. But, this, I think, is a difficult topic for a lot of companies, and we could just talk at length just about this, But, I think, definitely getting good referrals if you're working with an outside company, and if you're building in-house, just making sure that you're not trying to find one person to solve all of your development problems, and making sure that you're building a good cohesive team.
Okay, I like this idea of the full stack unicorn.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that. If somebody says they're a full stack developer, what kind of questions do you ask them, or why would you caution? I guess it seemed like you were cautioning. I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, from my background in the way that we run our teams, I don't really believe in full stack developers. I understand what it means, and I understand what this developer can do. But really, if you're building, a high-end, website or application or something, you're going to want somebody that specifically does the back end. Quite frankly, we have a back end, a middle end, and a front end developer. So we have at least 3, if not, a much bigger team than that on all of our projects. So the fact that you want to get one person to do all of that work is, it's just a lot of ask. Websites and applications is becoming more technical and more difficult and more layers to it. Every single year there's more pieces that get added on and more complexities, and somehow we've taken a step back, and we now think that instead of 2 people back end and front end, now we just have to pay 1 person to do it, it should be going the other way. We should be paying 3 or 4 or 5 people to do these things, because it's all becoming so specialized and so technical in order to be able to handle all of that information.
Interesting. So that kind of good segue into this idea of budget, right? Obviously, I think the answer is it depends, right? But I guess kind of to get into this discussion would be at what point, right? Maybe you want to outsource your development, right? At what point do you need to hire somebody that is knowledgeable, maybe that can't actually do the development, but is sort of like your project manager of your site security or your website as a whole? At what point do you go from having some firm do everything or having somebody who's in charge of it in your in-house?
I think you always have to have somebody in charge of it in-house, whether that's you as the business owner, or whether, you have a director of marketing, or, somebody that's handling, usually I think it's marketing that handles that, kind of in-house. But there's definitely somebody that takes ownership of the website that, is making sure that it's being built or designed, the way that they want for their company and stuff. In terms of like bringing somebody in house, I think that really depends on the team that you're working with. I think for a lot of companies, it can stop making sense to work with an agency because agencies can get really expensive depending on who you're working with. And sometimes it's just like, why are we paying this agency, all this huge amount of money when we could just pay, some couple people in-house to do that same thing. The problem is that you then need to bring on somebody in-house to oversee that team that has a very technical mindset. You need a, web director or a CTO or somebody that's running that team, because otherwise you're not going to hire the right candidates. You're not going to be able to build a cohesive team. So it's expensive in-house. It's expensive out-of-house. It takes a lot of expertise to do this stuff. So it's just a matter of whether you really want to own that all of that in-house and pay for when you need the ebb and flow of your development stuff, or whether you want to outsource that out.
Okay, cool. So speaking of, maybe we don't want to put solid numbers here, but for a small company, right? Let's say they're just a regular e-commerce company that does, a few million in sales on the web or something like that. What is a standard hour, or not hourly, but a standard like budget, or like how many hours should they be focused on sort of monitoring and doing these like checks that we talked about earlier in the discussion?
Yeah, I think e-commerce definitely, when you're dealing with e-commerce and you're making money online, it tends to cost you more money to support that. There's issues that come up that need troubleshooting from, user issues to problems with the software or transactions or whatever else, So I feel like those tend to have bigger monthly support budgets than like our non-e-commerce clients that we work with personally. So, if you're a non-e-commerce client, having a couple hours just to kind of make sure that your website is kept up to date is usually more than enough, 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, whatever hours, should be fine. If you're doing an e-commerce site, you're probably going to want to, at least 10 hours just to kind of be able to make sure that there's somebody on hand to help jump on any fires that come up. You're making money depends on your website, so you want to make sure that you have a team there.
Great. Well, that's a good place to stop for now. You are listening to This Week in Marketing on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in internet talk.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple, and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com, on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
You may have heard me brag about Progressive Medical Center and just how much they've helped me with my health. And Dr. Goli, one thing that you have helped so many people with is migraines.
Unfortunately, there are millions and millions of Americans who are suffering with migraines and headaches, and they're debilitating because it affects the quality of their life, and they cannot function properly. At Progressive, we get to the root cause because we understand that migraines could be caused by nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, believe it or not, delayed food sensitivities. And once we determine what the real reason is, we put a plan of action together together with medication that we get them off slowly, and we put them on an all-natural approach, and the results are amazing.
Incredible. I mean, there's so many people that can say they don't live their lives with migraines anymore thanks to Progressive Medical Center.
And that's what's exciting and rewarding to us as physicians, because we help our patients take control of their health, and that's why they're living well.
Why don't you get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today? Don't live in pain. Don't have migraines anymore. Just go to their website, progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
Did you know the majority of radio listeners are between the ages of 35 and 54, have a household income of more than $100,000, are classified as executives or professionals, and share the show they listen to? Become part of the Peggy Smedley Show to reach listeners looking for information on connected devices through cost-effective radio commercials or segment sponsorships. Contact us at 630-933-0844 for more information, or visit PeggySmedleyShow.com.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
All right, welcome back to This Week in Marketing. I'm your host, Sam Wheeler, and with me in the studio is Kevin Svek, and we have Rich Radzinski of Tragic Media. We're talking about website building, managing a security team, and all things data today, which has been a pretty good conversation. We don't have too long left, which is kind of sad, but I wanted to, before we talk a little bit more about Tragic Media, I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between first off, the difference between building an app and a progressive web app, or what kind of consideration should you take when you're diving into the app game?
Yeah, progressive web apps are a really cool, exciting new development approach that we're doing a lot of stuff at Tragic Media with, and it's something really cool because it allows companies to, really get into the application stores, without having to build a native application. There's a lot of benefits of building a native application, but then there's also a lot of benefits of not. And Progressive Web App allows your web app, just your website, to be installed like an application on a user's phone, so that they can access it from their application drawer and they can load it. Takes over their entire phone, but it is not anything separate than your web app / website. So our website's actually a progressive web app. So if you go to our website, it'll allow you to install it on your phone, but it's the same code that runs our website if you open it in a browser on your computer.
Okay, cool. So that's interesting. Is that the future of? Is it more secure? Is it faster? Like, why are sites doing that, or why are companies doing that?
So we're actually going to be having a podcast coming out in the next month or so. So definitely follow us, because we're going to talk more about this, because it's a really exciting new thing. The way that I talk about it is the device market is going to begin to grow. There's going to be I want to be able to see Facebook on my mirror or on my coffee table while I'm hanging out. And Facebook isn't going to go and build a separate application for every single coffee table and every single mirror that comes out. And I think progressive web apps is a great way to bridge that gap, because basically if the device can load a browser, all of a sudden it can install any application. In my mind, this is one of the reasons that the Windows Phone really failed, was because then Windows had to go out and be like, hey, we built this cool new device, go build a new application for our device, because it's really cool, and we think everybody will like it. If you could just spend $80,000 more to build an application for us, that'd be really great. So they really put that onto the consumer to then build a new application for their new stack, and instead progressive web applications make it so that it runs off the browser and the browser technology, so that if a device can load a browser, all of a sudden your application is available for it. So you don't have to be putting out a separate application for every single device and every single OS if you can just build a progressive web application. And, it doesn't work for all applications, and it's, not necessarily the solution across the board. But I think it's a really cool, exciting new technology that's allowing companies to save on development time, save on the cost of building, their entire digital stack. And it helps, get this application out to more people, more devices, faster and easier.
Okay, great. Yeah, I like that. I'm excited to see Facebook on my mirror.
Right.
Cool. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was taking a step away from the company side, but talking about a little bit on the consumer side. So, I think a good place to kind of talk about this is like personal finance apps, right? There's a ton of them out there. Acorn, Mint, Wally, I think is one. I know Turbo by Intuit just came out. And what do you do? How do you protect yourself as a consumer from yourself? Is there anything you can do to not get your data stolen if you don't?
100%. Yeah, I think that's a really great thing. I mean, like just, always, downloading apps from trusted stores is a great, first step. Is don't go to some, weird store that you get redirected to, install it from the Apple store or from the Windows store or, Android store. That's step one. Use trusted apps, look at the reviews, make sure that they seem like legitimate people, legitimate reviews. Make sure that, do some little bit of research on it, especially when it comes to finance apps. I think that is, you're putting sensitive data in there. You want to make sure that you're not giving that out to some, random application company or something.
Okay, cool. And if I'm a company, right, and I'm trying to build a app, would you suggest not to build an app and to build a progressive web app instead?
I think,
I guess it depends.
It very much depends. There's also a really cool thing coming out right now called JavaScript native apps, which is like React Native or NativeScript is what we use for building JavaScript native. And again, that actually builds you native applications from your JavaScript web app code. So again, it's a way to kind of help save on development time. So that way you're able to build an iOS and an Android app that are native apps that are available in the store and everything like that. But you can do it in pretty much half the time of building one of those apps natively. So it helps really save companies time and money. So there's a lot of really cool things happening right now in the kind of application sphere.
Great. Cool. So this kind of adds actually a great segue to one of my last questions here is, Tragic Media, you guys are based in downtown. What do you guys do well?
We're definitely, a development-focused company. So, we have design and UX and everything, but as opposed to other agencies that really focus more on the branding or the, paid ads or other pieces like that, like we focus on development, building and maintaining and supporting our clients, building really great web applications, JavaScript native applications and websites using open source technology. So a lot of Drupal, a lot of AngularJS, a lot of NativeScript now doing those JavaScript native applications. And really, anybody that wants to build anything custom, that they're, moved beyond their simple WordPress website and they want to kind of build that next layer, or they're, have a new idea, they want to build an application of some sort. We're a really great resource to help you understand it and help give you, a great outline for, how we would recommend you build that. And we have a really cool scalable approach to building and maintaining our sites to really help save our our clients in cost and help to really just be there from a support point of view.
Cool. So if I need if I'm building a team internally, don't want to build in-house, the full stack developer doesn't exist. I don't want them on my team, right? That your company kind of fills that gap.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and we work with, small, medium businesses, startups, as well as enterprise companies, and really, help to just save them on cost and bring them great expertise so that they know that they're, working with trusted developers and that they're not overpaying or being taken advantage of.
Definitely. So we got a couple minutes here. Another question that I've been wanting to ask you the whole time is how did Tragic Media come about? How did this thing get started?
Yeah, so I originally kind of cut my teeth in the web world, Digitaria, which is now the huge company Mirum in downtown. And that's where I really kind of learned how interactive agencies ran and how they built great websites and built great products. After that, I was looking for kind of hit a growth ceiling, and I was looking for my next gig and what I was going to do. And my consulting really just started taking off. And I specifically found a space in the agency world where there's, really great designers and there's really great developers, but it was really lacking in that front end space, and being able to capture that, pixel perfect design, and make that come to life is really something that I excelled at originally. And that's kind of where I built the company around originally. Was we were just a white label resource. We worked for other agencies, a lot of the really big ones downtown and across the United States, and we help kind of fill the gap for their team. So, they'd have great designers, they'd have great developers, and we help kind of fill in the front end space. And then over the years, we've grown, so now we're a full team. We do all the back end, front end design, and everything in house, but we can kind of cater and structure our teams depending on exactly what project we're working on. So, a lot of times what we're doing now is we're working with our bigger enterprise clients is they have really huge engineering teams, but they're not really privy to building modern applications. So we're coming in, we're wireframing, designing, and building these really great modern applications that are connecting with their back-end teams' APIs. And so we can create these really great enterprise applications for them, but they don't have to be trying to build this all in-house and everything. So
great. Well, hey, thanks so much, Rich. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is This Week in Marketing. You're listening to on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in internet talk. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Securing Our eCity Foundation is a nonprofit organization focused on cybersecurity awareness and education. Formed in 2011, their mission is to enable every San Diegan to live, work, and play safely in the cyber world. For more information, visit securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444. Securingourecity.org, 619-630-2444. Securingourecity.org.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Looking to be a successful entrepreneur? The virtual assistant industry continues to be a top choice for those looking to start their own business. The problem can be how to become a virtual assistant. Many turn to the Bible of the VA industry, the book Virtual Assistant, the series, and it's the perfect guide for office managers, executive assistants, and other administrative professionals looking to make the transition from employee to successful business owner. Go to vatheseries.com to get your copy today.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released, and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.